All right, is this working? Perhaps. I think it is. Okay. Hi, Internet. Boy, it's been a time, and we only have a little bit of time here today, but I wanted to try to get this because I just got transferred over to my new PC officially, so it's been a whole bunch of stuff, but let's go ahead and make a post about this. So yeah, we're going back a couple days because I missed the Rogue, and then I think the Warlock, and I think the Druid was today. For those of you who've been following kind of what I've been posting, real life, day job stuff has been just out of control lately. And unfortunately, we're getting more weather tonight. So I'm only a couple hours away from heading into yet another night shift this evening, which hopefully will be a one and done and we'll be out of it tomorrow, or I might be back into it again tomorrow. So I'm hopeful now that I have the new PC set up and things are running and hopefully working accordingly. We should be able to just jump into streams a little bit quicker than we had in the past. So let me just post this here. I'm a little out of it because so many things, just you never realize how much stuff you need to transfer when you change PCs. So let's go ahead and go back to the live chat. Yeah, sorry folks, it's been wild. So we're in it, we've moved the mic down here. Hopefully it sounds good. And yeah, I was able to actually clean up, it's not so messy behind me now. And I should be able to finish cleaning up over here on the right-hand side. And once that's done, we should be able to get all the unboxings out of the way that we've been missing. So yeah, sorry that we're so late compared to where we've been. Also hope volume and everything sounds good. Again, it's just a whole new I've had the Wave 3 the whole time. It's just been up here above where you guys could see. And in changing up my monitor setup and actually getting a new monitor relatively soon. Also, this new PC's up to date enough to be able to use NVIDIA Broadcast to cut out background noise, which the old PC, it was just too old. The graphics card and everything was too old to be able to handle all that stuff. So, yeah, that being said, things are much cleaner. I feel like I can do more work here at this desk because I was able to clean and finish kind of resetting stuff up. The standing desk is operational again. I've been sitting at one. I just can't ever use it to stand up and do the videos. But anyway, that being said, why don't
our main
we...
job with the Rogue.
Sorry. Go ahead and dive into our Rogue coverage here. So, well, see. This is what happens. We have to reset up the display that we're capturing. There we go. Let's go ahead and hopefully this isn't too loud for you guys.
Our main job with the Rogue was to not mess it up.
Yeah.
Because it
was very sound.
It is such a beloved, solid class that our main goal with the Rogue was to take those really wonderful pieces of design and add some new twists. And so in addition to giving the Rogue weapon mastery, as we have several of our other classes, and weapon mastery, as you and I've
missed you guys too,
discussed in another video, gives the Rogue and others some really exciting combo options and tactical abilities.
As we discussed, like short sword, with the knife, you're like hitting, gaining advantage on the next attack, lining up your sneak attack, stuff like that.
Glorious.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, the other biggie in the Rogue is a brand new feature called Cunning Strike.
Yeah.
As somebody who's played the playtest Rogue since its inception through level 9 at this point and having transitioned into multiple different versions of the Rogue, Cunning Strike is a phenomenal feature.
Ended up being a hit in the Unearthed Arcana series. And what Cunning Strike really boils down to is it gives the Rogue the ability, starting at 5th level, to trade sneak attack damage dice for other effects.
Yeah.
Because we realized the sneak attack bucket of dice it gets awfully big.
Yes.
And sometimes the rogue doesn't need all of those dice just to deal damage. So the light bulb that went off for us in our design process with the rogue was, well, what if we let the rogue do other things with those dice? Because my goodness, are there a lot of them. And so Cunning Strike was then born. Cunning Strike really is an answer to what if the rogue could do other things with those dice. And so at the start,
It kind of falls into the same line as like brutal strikes as opposed to brutal critical. I really like what they've done. I've talked about this ad nauseum over the years, that I really like the concept of taking existing resources that you have on a class and coming up with clever new ways to utilize them. And that's what they've done with the rogue here with the Cunning Strikes feature. That's what they did with the fighter and the tactical shift to the tactical mastery and all those different uses of second wind. It actually bums me out because I thought a great opportunity to do that with the paladin would have been to trade away smite dice to do cool things. And in a certain way, they kind of did that with like the smites being spells and the all the smite spells being slightly different. But I do think that that would be a cool way to just like, even if you just had divine smite as a base, and it did, extra d8s as you cast from higher level slots, you could forego some of the d8s from smite to do other effects like set somebody on fire or whatever. I thought that that's what they were going to end up ultimately doing, but they didn't, and that's fine. And I just, it just makes me like the rogue that much more.
what the rogue can do is can trade sneak attack dice to do things like poison their target, trip their target, withdraw from melee without provoking opportunity attacks, that sort of thing. Then at higher level, you get even more options, and then you also gain the ability to pile on multiple options to the same sneak attack. And so it is all about giving the rogue ways to do more than just bucket loads of damage, without taking away the ability to do bucket loads of damage. Because
And that, so two things. One, to your point, Henry, yes, you technically can meta magic smites. We went through this in the Paladin video. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of super useful meta magic options for smites. They technically are an option for you. It just isn't really something great. Like, there's not any kind of really stand out, like, oh, this makes it so much better. But what they also just brought up is they gave the rogues so much utility by allowing them to trade in bucket loads of damage dice to do cool things without taking that away. And it feels to some extent that they sort of did that to the paladin by like changing the way things work. Like they gave them other utility in the rest of the class, which is very good, and I cannot argue with that. But it's just like it's interesting to see the dichotomy of how they go about balancing these things, because in a lot of ways you could make the argument that a rogue and a paladin are relatively similar in the fact that they can do very heavy single target damage. The paladin has a finite usage of these tied to their spell slots. The rogue just has certain caveats they have to meet, but they can do it consistently forever. So it's just an interesting, I'm very curious how I would love to actually have the conversation about when that balanced discussion. How do you look at something like a paladin and a rogue, and not like trying to trap anybody in anything and be like, aha, got you, or, complain too much more about the paladin, because I'm really not at that point. I'm kind of past it. But from a game design standpoint, I'm very curious how you go about looking at these two classes, which I think you can both, I think we can all agree, are relatively similar in at least some aspects of what they do, right? Obviously, you would never call a paladin and a rogue the same. They're very different in a lot of other ways, but they're kind of one aspect of their role in combat, big, heavy, single target damage, is very similar, but they're balanced drastically differently. So I'd be very curious to see the thought process behind how that went down.
sometimes the rogue will still want to just take all their sneak attack dice and apply all of it to damage. But in those cases where it would be more helpful for you to poison the target, knock them down, withdraw, or knock them out harmlessly, because at higher level the rogue also has even the option to just knock them out and not deal enough damage to actually slay them.
Yeah, you don't need to assassinate every NPC you meet.
Exactly. In addition to adding Cunning Strike to the rogue's kit, we've also enhanced other features that were there. We took Reliable Talent and moved it to a lower level.
Boy, is that a huge win. As a level 9 rogue, having Reliable Talent at level 9 is bananas. I love it.
We made it so that Thieves' Cant now gives you an additional language in addition to allowing you to use Thieves' Cant. And we've also, at level 3, added a brand new feature called Steady Aim. This debuted in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's now graduated to the core books. And this allows the rogue to be steady and give themselves advantage on their next attack roll. A fact, let's put a pin in that, a fact we will return to when we get to the Assassin.
Yes.
And the Assassin is especially glad that Steady Aim is now in the book. We also even enhanced Slippery Mind at higher level, which used to just give you proficiency in Wisdom saves. It now gives you proficiency in both Wisdom and Charisma saves. And
nice little
the reason
utility.
why that's relevant is it means now rogues will be harder to banish, since most spells and other effects that forcefully teleport people away or banish them involve Charisma saving throws.
Oh, interesting.
And we wanted rogues to have all around slippery minds and to really lean into the theme that not only are rogues really good at stealth, devastating single strikes with sneak attack, but they're also good at wiggling out of danger.
Yeah.
And a number of the rogue's abilities are all about wiggling out of either physical danger or mental or magical danger. And all of that together really, I think, achieves that goal that we had of take this rogue that's beloved, that's working really well, and just crank up the volume a little bit.
Yeah.
I love having extra things to do with sneak attack. I love turning that into a resource.
Like we said, Rogue was a good class. People might say it's bad. Rogue was solid as it was. It was, did it have a ton of different options and what it could do? No, you pretty much were. I'm not going to call you a one-trick pony because you still had all your skills, but you were basically hide, find a way to get yourself advantage, do sneak attack, and that was kind of your MO. And that's kind of the way rogues have always been. And you still have that capability with this new version, but you now have more options, which is really nice.
We've seen that kind of design element with a couple of things in this new player's handbook, but that is something I adore because you always wanted to have the ability to potentially poison a target, right? Or to knock out a target. Even in the video games I grew up playing, like Thief and Dishonored, like that's all very iconic for a rogue to be able to do. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, and again, just as with weapon mastery, it is something that we have loved playing with in our playtest games.
And again, you have weapon mastery to play with too now
Yes.
as a rogue.
Right.
A rogue does not have as many masteries to play with as, say, the fighter, but still enough for it to make a difference.
Yeah.
I think it's 2.
It gives the rogue some really interesting tactical mini games when, especially once Cunning Strike is in the mix, to figure out each turn. It's like, okay, what am I going to do with my weapon? What am I going to do with my sneak attack? A lot of fun. Then contributing to the rogue's enhanced profile are the 4 subclasses. Now, the rogue has its 2 classic subclasses, the assassin and the thief.
Right.
And those are 2 archetypes
New art,
in
by
the
the way.
rogue that go all the way back to 1st edition D&D. And it's all about, really, do you want to emphasize the killing part of the rogue's identity, or do you want to emphasize the infiltrator and treasure hunter side of the rogue's identity, with the thief representing infiltration and treasure hunting. And then the other 2 subclasses that are available, just as in the fighter, we have the Eldritch Knight and the Psy Warrior taking the baseline class and mixing it with stuff outside the class. We have the same thing with the Arcane Trickster and the Soul Knife in the
art
Rogue,
on the
where
right looks
you can take
phenomenal.
the baseline Rogue and mix it either with spellcasting
It almost doesn't even look like it fits with the rest of the book.
in the Arcane Trickster, or mix it with psionic power in the Soul Knife.
Nice.
Shall we start with the Assassin?
Yes,
or-
let's start with the assassin. My first character was an assassin, so I've spent time with this subclass.
So the Assassin is long been a very popular archetype, but the 2014 version of the subclass struggled in actual play. Too much of its core identity relied on surprising the other combatants in a battle, and that could be quite challenging to pull off. And since we've changed the surprise rules in the new player's handbook, we didn't want to have anything in the assassin that, of course, relied on that anymore. We wanted to, at the baseline, for the assassin's abilities to be more reliable so that you could feel like your subclass was actually doing something. And so with that in mind, we redesigned the Assassinate feature. First off, it gives the assassin advantage on initiative rolls. This for
Makes
us
sense.
was something we planned on doing for a long time once we revised the assassin, because we felt that the assassin should have a better chance of going first than most other combatants, because of course to do their job of assassination, getting the jump on others is a critical part of that. Now
Nice
what
and
we
easy.
also did is we made it so that the extra damage that they can deal in the first round of combat is no longer reliant on someone being surprised, but instead simply reliant on the other person not having acted yet. So the two parts of Assassinate work together. We gave advantage on initiative rolls so that the assassin is more likely to go sooner, and going sooner means they have more potential targets to use their Assassinate on, because the requirement to use it is simply that the target has not acted yet in the combat. And we have found that in playtesting, this has achieved the goal of making the assassin actually able to use their core shtick reliably in most battles, unless the D20 is just totally cruel to them.
Right.
We also made a number of other enhancements.
I just want to point out the playtest version of Alert, which used to be, right, you can't be surprised, and you get a plus, I think it was +5 to your initiative rolls. The playtest version of Alert, which I believe is very similar to the one we're going to see in the final product, is proficiency bonus gets added to your initiative rolls. So it starts off a little slower with +2, but it could ramp all the way up to +6. But the second feature of Alert is that, like, when you roll initiative, you can swap initiative spots with somebody else. I know some people use that as a homebrew rule, but this is now codified as an option, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is you can pick somebody else and switch position with them in the initiative order. So that has the potential, if somebody in your party has Alert and they roll first, to possibly swap with your assassin, let's say, to get them earlier in the order to possibly allow for cooler stuff. And that's just other interesting tactical combat stuff that you can do now as a team, which is pretty cool.
Simple ones, like in Assassin's Tools, we now not only give you the proficiencies that we gave you before, but now we also give you the tools themselves. We were chuckling when we realized that a decade ago we gave you these proficiencies, and then we're like, well, and good luck.
Yeah.
So now you actually get a disguise kit and a poisoner's kit when you reach the level where you get these proficiencies. We've also then, and this goes back to steady aim that we were talking about before, we've completely redesigned infiltration expertise so that it still includes some of the mimicry that the assassin was capable of before, to make it easier for them to socially infiltrate certain places where they might be hunting someone or something down. But we've also now made it so that they can use steady aim on the move. Most rogues, when they use steady aim, can't move for the rest of the turn because they are standing still as they line up an attack. The assassin, who, you know, in the narrative you can often imagine would be in a sticky situation where they might need to be moving John Wick style as they are battling people. We wanted them to be able to line up their shots even while they're running across the room.
Right.
And to me, this is actually,
again, a nice simple change. That's a huge benefit, right? For those of you who don't know, steady aim is you take a bonus action to not move to give yourself advantage on an attack roll. So it's a way you can self-set up your own sneak attack by just not moving, which is great if you're a ranged rogue, right? And you happen to be in a situation where you're advantageous, where you can see all the combatants and you can just bonus action stand still. I mean, obviously, in the other side of it, you could bonus action hide to get advantage, but then that involves multiple checks. And if you're just looking for the advantage side of things for the sneak attack, you could just do this on your turn. Bonus action, steady aim, action, attack with advantage, get sneak attack. The fact that they just took something, again, a feature that they've now made codified as part of the base class, and just said, hey, the assassin gets to do it on the move. That's a nice, clean update that makes the assassin a little something special.
actually one of the most cool things in the assassin, just from a sort of cinematic standpoint.
Right.
Is imagining them doing this. We have also replaced the imposter feature that they used to have and given them a brand new feature called Envenom Weapons, which ties into the new Cunning Strike feature in the baseline Rogue, which allows them to deal more damage and ignore poison resistance when they use the poison option of Cunning Strike. We wanted assassins to be the best at using the new poison option that all rogues have access to.
Perfect.
And then finally, Death Strike no longer relies on surprise. Instead, You just have to sneak attack somebody in the first round of combat, and you can potentially have your death strike.
So we did Assassin, so...
Arcane Trickster?
Yeah, Arcane Trickster it's perfect. It's always been perfect. This is a hard one to improve upon.
Well, and the Arcane Trickster, because it was so solid and so fun, other than just getting some tweaks to integrate seamlessly into the rest of the player's handbook, really only got a few modifications and one bit of actual redesign. So first, on the front of just some nice enhancements, the Arcane Trickster's spellcasting ability no longer has any School of Magic restrictions.
Similar to what we saw with the Eldritch Knight.
And like the Eldritch Knight, who can now use an Arcane Focus,
the
Arcane Trickster can now use an Arcane Focus.
Sense.
And the Arcane Trickster continues to be the awesome spell-wielding rogue who can use Mage Hand for endless shenanigans. And we then allow even more shenanigans with a new version of Versatile Trickster, which we've redesigned to now interact with Cunning Strike in the baseline rogue. And just as the Assassin is now really good at using the poison option in Cunning Strike, the Arcane Trickster is really good at using the trip Cunning Strike.
Nice
because
and
now,
simple
when you,
integration.
as the rogue, trip someone, you can also have your Mage Hand trip somebody else.
So good.
And so you can imagine everyone's distracted by the rogue doing something, and then over there the Mage Hand is going whoop, and then someone else tumbles down. So you will be able to get up to even more silliness as an Arcane Trickster. I have always loved this subclass for truly delivering what's in its name, being a trickster, because there is so much prankishness in this subclass.
I thieve a lot as Arcane Trickster. It is a very, very fun subclass. Also really great at infiltration, at triggering traps without dying. Like it is one of those perfect meshes of a rogue, adding magic to a rogue to just get by a little bit better.
And it sounds like a small thing, but in both of the Eldritch Knight and the Arcane Trickster, us removing the School of Magic restrictions in each of them
It's huge.
is itself a big change, because it means you will be able to
Find familiar, shield.
build a mix of abilities that you could never build in the past, because the
Fireball Rogue,
School
yeah,
of
at higher
Magic
levels,
restrictions
yeah.
in the past really kind of hedged you in the type of Arcane Trickster you can build, and now you have way more options.
Perfect.
I mean, it's way later to get Fireball Rogue, right? Because you still got to get 3rd level spell slots. But nothing's greater than being a rogue and dropping a fireball on yourself and then evasioning out of and taking no damage from the fireball you dropped on yourself. It's pretty cool.
The other rogue subclass that is mixing in supernatural power with the rogue's baseline abilities is the Soul Knife. For me, one of the
Art
things
is so
that
good.
I enjoy about the Arcane Trickster and the Soul Knife is they're not only siblings to each other as the two rogue subclasses that mix roguishness with supernatural ability, but they are also siblings to the other two subclasses in that the Arcane Trickster is basically the magical equivalent of the Thief, and the Soul Knife is the supernatural equivalent of the Assassin.
Yeah.
And the Soul Knife manifests this psychic blade and uses it to terrifyingly
Soul
attack
Knife is
people
really cool.
and leave no trace.
That's the creepiest bit. Yeah.
And the Soul Knife appeared originally in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It will feel much the same here, but it has enhanced presentation. It's now been fully integrated into the rule set of the new Player's
love the
Handbook.
art, man.
But we also made a couple of critical functional changes to the use of the Soul Knife itself, because
I'm guessing what these are now.
so, and they're just like in the Arcane Trickster. It goes a long way us lifting the School of Magic
either.
restriction in
I
terms
love
of how the
Salisbury barbs.
subclass will feel. The Soul Knife has two important changes to the Psychic Blades. One of them is you can now use them on your opportunity attacks.
Yeah,
This is probably the most requested
Yes.
feature for the Soul Knife, is being able to
Fantastic.
use the Psychic Blades for opportunity attacks,
Yeah.
and now you can.
Thank you.
Great.
The other, you're welcome. the
It is
other cool thing
1.25,
that we've done
yeah.
for the Psychic Blades is we've given them a mastery property. We wanted the Soul Knife to feel like they were still getting to use the fun of the mastery system, even when using their Psychic Blades. And so the Psychic Blades have the Vex mastery property, which is the property that sets up your next attack to have advantage.
You guys were talking about how you were worried about constant advantage on the rogue with the Vex property. How about the fact that the Soul Knife can do it with their soul knives, their magical daggers that they create, can have the Vex property, which is just wild. Also, great opportunity to really integrate into a new system by giving somebody who can create a magical blade weapon mastery on the creation of that magical blade. Also, potentially freeing up other mastery properties for you by if you're going to primarily use your soul knife blades, then you're probably going to just use the Vex property of those blades, which lets you choose other weapons for weapon proficiencies.
Meaning, if the soul knife is using their ability to make an attack with their action and then a second one with their bonus action, that bonus action attack can now have advantage thanks to the Vex of their first attack.
So good.
So you are setting up your sneak attack very well, and you've got this extra weapon mastery.
Yes. So next up, the Thief.
Let's talk about the Thief.
So the
Thief is, by the way, what I'm playing in my level 9 character, and it's so good.
Thief has a number of fun enhancements as well as redesigns within it. Our goal here was to just make the Thief even more thiefy. So one of the things that we did is in the Fast Hands feature, we've given the Thief the ability to activate magic items as a bonus action.
So many of us were trying to do this anyway. The fact that this is now a thing is phenomenal.
Previously, Fast Hands did not apply to magic items, and now it does.
Everybody thought it did.
And so the Thief will be able to take a magic item that requires a magic action for activation and be, thanks to Fast Hands, now activated as a bonus action.
Oh, perfect.
We've also made it so that in second story work, the Thief can now use their dexterity instead of their strength when determining their jump distance, and it now gives them a climb speed. It technically gave them a climb speed before, but did not call it a climb speed.
Oh, okay.
And so now it loops through the regular climb speed rules.
Right.
We've also given you a new Cunning Strike option in Supreme Sneak at level 9, which now allows you to make an attack while you're hidden and stay hidden.
Yeah, that's really, really
And
nice.
then finally, in Use Magic Device, we've given the Thief the ability to attune to up to 4 magic items instead of just the 3 that most characters are limited to. It also gives the Thief a chance of using a magic item that has charges in it, of not actually expending any charges when using the item, and we've also provided guidance on how the Thief can use spell scrolls that they wouldn't normally be able to use. And so they're really great at kind of cheating a number of the rules in the game.
And that's the Rogue.
It is a gloriously stealthy class that is now even trickier than it was before.
The new player's handbook is...
There you go, folks. That is our updated Rogue. So I know some of you are already looking at it and saying, you know, hey, we just did the Rogue now, and, you know, we're already onto the Druid. Yeah, unfortunately, I know I have the Warlock to cover. I have the Druid to cover. By the way, I have seen a lot of discourse around the way the Druid is. I like the new Druid. I kind of like it. I mean, listen, I would be a horrible hypocrite to be like, listen, I recognize that Paladins were overpowered and had a lot of going for them. If you're gonna agree with that, or in the camp that Paladins needed to be fixed, you also needed to agree that Druids needed a fix too. And I think the changes that they did are good. People are complaining a lot about temporary hit points on that. I know we're not there yet. We'll get to that video in the future. Unfortunately, I have to jump off of this to go on to a work call for my evening shift that's coming up. So I don't know that we're going to get to cover the Warlock tonight. We might have to do it early tomorrow morning. And then hopefully maybe we could do like, I want to do separate live streams too, so that people aren't just sitting through a big long one, even though timestamps are a thing. This is the Rogue. We'll jump into the Warlock as soon as possible. Hopefully we can get to the Warlock and the Druid before whatever comes out tomorrow goes live. I don't even remember what it is, Bard or Ranger. So yeah, we can definitely do some what didn't make it into the player's handbook. We'll cover stuff. We'll cover a bunch. I want to do a separate video just on Surprise now that it's changed. There's some stuff that's been going around about the VTT that we talked about a little bit, but I'd like to make a separate video on that. So I would love to stay and chat with y'all. I really would, but I do have to jump on this work call, so I will definitely be making more videos. If I can squeak one out between now and my shift in a couple hours from now, I will. But if not, we'll have to wait till tomorrow. So anyway, I hope you all appreciate this. And I will try to get back. I mean, I'm really slammed. This has been absolutely nutty for me lately. And I apologize, but anyway, thank you all so much for watching.